Most people who call my office eventually ask the same question. How long is this going to take? And that's a very reasonable question. Hello, I'm Craig Steger, and I'm a personal injury attorney in La Crosse, Wisconsin. If you've been injured, your life already feels disrupted. You may be missing work, you may be in treatment, you may be dealing with insurance companies, and you don't want this hanging over your head forever. So let me give you the lawyer answer first. It depends. But let me also give you the simple answer. It's however long it takes for you to fully heal from your injuries. Now that doesn't mean it's unpredictable. Wisconsin injury cases tend to move in phases, and once you understand those phases, the timeline will probably make much more sense. There are basically 4 phases of a Wisconsin personal injury case. First, you have medical treatment and stabilization. Second, you have investigation and case development. Third, negotiation with the insurance company. And fourth, if necessary, a lawsuit. Not every case reaches the 4th phase, but understanding all 4 steps will help you understand who controls the clock. Let's talk about phase 1, medical treatment and stabilization. This is often the longest part of the case. Before a claim can fairly be resolved, we usually need to understand what is the diagnosis, what treatment have you had, and what treatment will be required in the future. Is surgery involved? Is there any kind of permanent injury or impairment? What kind of future treatment will be needed? If you try to resolve a case too early, before your condition stabilizes, you risk leaving money on the table. In personal injury law, we often talk about something called maximum medical improvement, MMI. That simply means your condition has stabilized enough that doctors can reasonably evaluate the long-term impact of your injuries. Until that happens, it's generally premature and risky to try to settle your case. The timeline is driven not so much by lawyers or courts, but just by how your body and your medical treatment responds. Now, phase 2 is investigation and case development. Now, while treatment is ongoing, your legal team is usually developing your case. This is going to include things like getting your medical records, compiling your medical bills, reviewing things like accident reports, photos, videos, analyzing insurance policies, adding up your wage loss, and actually talking to your doctors and possibly getting opinions and reports from them. Sometimes it means consulting with experts such as accident reconstructionists. If liability is clear and injuries are straightforward, this phase may move fairly efficiently. But if fault is disputed, if there's multiple parties involved, or if the insurance coverage is complex, it can take longer. The goal of this phase is not speed. The goal is to be accurate and fully prepared to try to resolve your case. Now let's talk about the 3rd phase, negotiation. So once your medical condition is stabilized enough to at least understand the scope of your damages, the case will generally move into the negotiation phase. Typically, that involves preparing a detailed written demand package that is sent to the responsible party's insurance company. That demand package usually summarizes things like your injuries, your treatment, how much your medical expenses are, any wage loss. It'll discuss the overall impact of that the injury has had on your life. Now, the insurance company will take that and they'll review those materials, and that can take some time. Insurance companies have internal procedures, supervisors, and evaluation systems. Now, some cases resolve during this phase, but some require multiple rounds of negotiations. Again, the timeline varies based on the complexity of the case and, quite frankly, the reasonableness of the insurance company. Now let's talk about phase 4. Sometimes a lawsuit is filed. If a fair resolution cannot be reached through negotiation, we'll start a lawsuit. Filing a lawsuit does not mean you're going to trial immediately. Trial seldom happens less than a year after the lawsuit starts, and oftentimes it can be 2 years or more before a case actually gets to trial. Now, filing a lawsuit simply moves your case into the court system where deadlines will be set, a judge will be assigned to the case to resolve any disputes between the lawyers and the parties. In Wisconsin, that process typically includes things like written disclosure of information and documents. We call that discovery. Depositions, where the parties and witnesses are questioned by the other lawyers under oath in front of a court reporter. There may be motions, sometimes over minor issues and sometimes over whether the case can be brought at all. Generally speaking, there will be a mediation. This is almost always required by the judge assigned to your case. This is a process with another neutral party, generally a retired judge or a lawyer, who tries to work together with the parties and see if they could reach a resolution. Eventually, if that doesn't work, you'll have a trial date. Court schedules can significantly affect the timing of how quickly you can get in front of a jury. Depending on the county and the complexity of the case, litigation can take a year or more. Serious injury cases generally take longer. Trials usually last anywhere between a couple days to maybe a couple of weeks, but most get done in less than a week. But even after a lawsuit is filed, many cases still resolve or settle before trial happens. Now, what makes a case move faster? There are certain factors that tend to shorten the timeline. If there's clear liability, obvious injuries like broken bones and those that require surgery, clear and predictable medical outcomes, sometimes actually having inadequate insurance coverage can speed it up. If you have cooperative parties and lawyers and insurance adjusters, when those pieces align, resolution can happen more efficiently. Now, what are things that slow a case down? Well, you see, on the other hand, delays can happen if medical treatment is ongoing, if fault is in dispute, if there are multiple parties involved, if insurance coverage is either limited or maybe too much. Experts may be required to look at the case. Court calendars can be congested. It can be difficult sometimes to get a lengthy trial on the court's calendar. These are just structural realities of the system. They're not necessarily signs that something is wrong with your case. Now, people often want specific numbers. Now, while every case is different, here's a general framework. Cases involving minor injuries that resolve quickly may resolve within a few months after treatment ends. More moderate injuries can often take a year or more from start to finish. Serious injury cases, especially those requiring a lawsuit or litigation, can take multiple years. Some of that's in our control and some of it, like the judge's calendar, is not. Generally, the more serious the injuries, the more preparation that is required to get that case ready for resolution. So how long does a Wisconsin injury case take? It depends on the severity of the injury, the complexity of the facts, the relative cooperation of the parties, and whether a lawsuit becomes necessary. But most cases follow these predictable stages. If you'd like to schedule a free consultation with my office, just reach out to the number on the screen or go to the description in this video for more information. If you'd like to understand what it's actually like to hire and work with a personal injury lawyer in Wisconsin, you can watch that video next. Or if you want a broader overview of how injury claims work from start to finish, you can watch the complete guide to Wisconsin personal injury claims.